Nevertheless, if you go through something in your life and you don't learn from it, then you miss the point. You can mark a double loss. Rather, if you go through a situation and as a result from that happens a situation that is not positive, if you understand, you learn, you see what was the problem, and from that you take something, then at least you're able to rectify the damage that was done, and needless to say that you grow. So we're not going to even focus on the teachings of the Ari, because I don't think that anyone, especially in our generation, can really figure out what he's teaching. Anyone who comes and says that they learn his teaching and they understand what he's saying, I strongly can disagree with that. Maybe a few in our generation, you can really say that they understand, they go to the depth of the mind of the Ari to understand what he's talking about. So, but nevertheless, we can at least learn from his simple teachings, like what yesterday that we touched two things: how important it is v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, and how important it is to serve Hashem b'simcha. But here is something very interesting that we can learn from. That comes a very big question: why did he die so young? He was 38 years old. If he's such a great sage, such a present to the universe. His student Rabbi Chaim Vital was saying that he's a present to the universe. So why would he die when he's 38 years old? Wouldn't Hashem want him to live here more? So of course there's different opinions that maybe he finished his tikkun, whatever it is. The reason why he died young is because there was a machloket between his students. And even in the students of the Arizal, there's a machloket, so much more so with us. I mean, we disagree with each other on can't even say on a daily basis, it's on a minute basis. But, we saw something similar with the students of Rabbi Akiva, that I don't think that we have many people in our generation that are in the same level of the students of the Rabbi Akiva, and nevertheless they also had issues between them. So we know that the students of the Arizal, 10 students, there was a disagreement. Not that they were disagreeing with each other about basic things, rather they don't really believed in the power of each and every one of them. That to a point that Ari actually says, I don't want you to learn what I teach. I don't want you to take, because you'll take it, it will actually do damage than good. And to a point that it brought him to literally end his life. The fact that he was coming to teach the students, and instead of them growing, and chas v'shalom, it affected them in a negative way. Now, he had one of his students was a Kohen. The story says that he got sick. There was a plague at the time, and he got sick from the plague. The story says that he got sick on a Friday, and Tuesday he died. It was chick-chack. And Friday already the students noticed that something's going on, because he came and he didn't say hello to any one of them. And already they figured out that something is happening. And his students were around him, and his student, the Kohen, he told him, please leave the room, because I'm about to die. And they knew that that's it, that he's going. And they were very worried, what's going to happen, who's going to teach us. Interestingly, he said, don't worry, I'll come back. But nevertheless, then he already knew that he's dying. He already saw Malach HaMavet dancing around. He knew that he's going. And in other words, he was saying to them, now it's not the time for you to receive what I have to say. To a point that he actually asked them to stop learning his teaching. That's why we don't have much of the teachings of the Ari. Only later the Rabbi Chaim Vital started taking all the teachings and started putting it into books. Very interestingly, if you remember yesterday we spoke that Rabbi Chaim Vital could not understand anything that the Ari taught him. And they went to Tveria, they took a boat, they went to the Kinneret, and they drank a cup of water. And the story that I said, it's not accurate, because I say he took a little cup and he gave him a cup to drink. The Ari didn't let his students drink from a cup. He rather only from the hand. This is not something they really do, but when it came with the students of the Ari, he told them to drink from their hands. The Ari was explaining that there are demons incarnated in water. Megulgalim, there are demons in water. And chas v'shalom, if there's a demon incarnated in the water, then it can harm the person a lot. I'm sure you saw in different Hasidic groups that they have a custom that they pour a little bit of water out of the cup. I don't know if you ever saw that. In different groups, this is a common thing, that before you drink, you empty a little bit, you drop a drop or two out of the cup. For the same reason, because the Ari says the demons that are incarnated in water, and it can harm the person. Now, the Ari knew something very unique, that this is something that we need to try to figure out. He knew how action that is happening in an external way, how it affects the person in an internal way. And not only that, how something positive from the outside can cause a rectification from the inside. And really that's what we want to try. That's one of the many reasons why we learn the mystical part of the Torah, is to get what can I do on the outside that will affect me on the inside. And Dari understood that when you're doing a certain action, it will affect the nefesh. And really what needs the rectification is the nefesh, not the neshama, definitely not the chaya or the yechidah, but what needs the tikkun is the nefesh and the ruach. And Ari already knew by looking from something external how it's affecting the nefesh. Now, going back to the idea with the water, then we know that water is what gives life. Person is fainted or chas v'shalom very sick, you give the person a little bit of water, and water is what gives chayut to the nefesh. The nefesh also needs some type of life force, and water does that. There's something in the water. Very interesting when you go through the teachings of the elements, the elements that create the world, the four elements of water, fire, and earth, and air. Then each element is, you can learn what are the characteristics of the elements. And with water, it says, Maim matzmiach ta'anug. Water, it develops pleasure. And I mean, pleasure is not a negative thing. It depends what the pleasure is from. The pleasure is lit'aneg alavaya, to pleasure on Hashem, then there's no problem here. Lehefech, Torah and mitzvot brings you to pleasure. The tzaddikim, they're so refined that they're able to experience this pleasure. We don't have the ability to experience this pleasure, so we're looking for a substance. So it will be through food, through material things, marital relations, and so forth. But a tzaddik doesn't need something physical to reach pleasure. He reaches the level of ta'anug from the spiritual level. We are not in that level, so we're going after these ta'anugot, after these pleasures. But nevertheless, the water is what develops the ta'anug. And Dari explains that the nefesh, the lower part of the soul, it gets overwhelmed in a positive way, and can be also in a negative, from water. Water affects the nefesh. That's why I'm sure you wondered once or twice why after we drink water, when we also apply the same bracha on many other things, but specifically when we drink water, what do you say after drinking water? Borei nefashot rabot. What does that mean? Saying ala michya v'ala kalkala, I understand. Listen to the words or the translation, it makes sense. But after you eat fruit that is not from the 7 species, or you eat or you drink water, you say borei nefashot rabot, creating many souls. What does one have to do with the other? The water, the effect of the water on the nefesh that causes this hitpa'alut, this overwhelming, it creates more nefashot, it multiplies the nefesh. Now, any place that is giving of life, there's always going to be, in the presence there are shedim, demons. Because shed is, what the demon does, it takes pleasure, but without a female. And the way how the Ari says, it's nekeva metukenet. Everything has to be with the relations of a female and a male. But when the pleasure is not coming from a spiritual place, then a shed has yanika into it, and it takes part of it, then it has control. We don't really realize that, but there's a lot of control over us through demons. And I know you're probably imagining demons with horns and fangs. It's not the demons that we're referring to, but rather a demon has control on anything that you have ta'anug from. That's why the ta'anug means pleasure, and that's why you see the tzaddikim. They don't enjoy things in this world. They don't want to derive any pleasure from this world. So why? Because any pleasure that you derive from this world will have an opportunity for a demon to have some type of achiza in there. And once there's achiza of a demon, then you are subject to be harmed by the demon. So the Ari was very particular that when the students were drinking water, they wouldn't be drinking it from a cup, rather drinking it from the hand, because there's always going to be the chance, not always, water falls from your hand. Your hand is not a sealed vessel. And by that, if there is a demon in there, then he won't stay in the water. That way it can't harm them. So if you just want to take one thing from tonight, is that when you drink a little bit of liquid, is pour something out of it. Make sure that a little bit comes out. Now, when a person drinks water, then it gives him a certain chayut, a certain life force, and it's affecting the nefesh. It's affecting the nefesh. That's why, again, going back to the blessing, we say borei nefashot rabot, because it's something that is hard for us to fathom. But when you give life to your nefesh, it, so to say, multiplies in a way that's not that you have now many of them, but there's growing spiritually. Now, interestingly, because we're talking about the demon, it says in one of the sharim of the Ari, Shar HaKavanot, specifically in the Shar of the Rosh Hashanah, it's talking about Adam HaRishon that he used to come to on demons, that he used to mate with the demons too, which comes from Adam HaRishon, so bored, he used to go with demons. But nevertheless, it says that Adam HaRishon was by himself. So when he used to go on a demon, is without a female, without a rectified female, nekava metukenet. So the point is not to try to understand what's the idea, is to take from it something more simple. Is that when I go to look to receive ta'anug from something in this world, some type of a pleasure, then I have to understand that inside of it will be already in the like you know those salespeople, they put their foot through the door. They just open the door to see what it is. Oh, the foot is already in. Can't close the door now. It's trying to close the door. He's already halfway in. So we have to understand that many things that come from a very external way, we don't realize that, but it's affecting me in a very internal way. Ari was very profound by looking at what is the external act that affects the nefesh. So in our generation, unfortunately, we're constantly running after pleasures, after these ta'anugot. It can be a cookie, it can be a cake, it can be a good steak, and it can be whatever it is. You use your imagination, what you're running after these ta'anugot. But we're constantly running after these little pleasures. The pleasure that is not coming from a spiritual place, coming from a physical place, then it has already a partner coming with it. And anything that will give chayut, any type of life force that's coming in a physical pleasure, there's already a achiza, a salesperson. I mean, I call them a salesperson because usually the salesperson, they don't let go. You know, today I called the phone company, we switched the companies here. So I called the old one to disconnect. Oh, what they get, the sales pitch. Are you sure? You want this? We'll give you that. I told him I just called to cancel. I didn't call to hear what your offer is. And half an hour I was on the phone. And at some point I was trying to keep my calm and not to get upset. And someone was like, why don't you just tell him, sir, I came to cancel the service. I don't want to hear about your offers. But the salesperson was like, not letting go. So yeah, pushing, and I'll give you this and I'll give you that. And I told him, listen, we already made our research. We already came to the conclusion that the other company gave us a better deal. But our service is better. He says, well, it doesn't sound to me so better when you're holding me on the phone for half an hour and driving me crazy. But nevertheless, so I call them salesperson, but these are demons that they attach to the worldly pleasure. And the Ari, of course, this is not in our caliber, but even the students, a second that they went a little bit lower to a point that there was some type of disrespect to each other, and they had the disagreements, they didn't see the value of each other, that's when the Ari already pushed out and says, okay, I can't teach you anymore. And it affected him in such of a way that it actually affected his life, and he got affected by the Magefa, by the plague. So much more so we have to take from that the sensitivity. We have to learn from these two very large things in our life. First and most important, is, this is much easier said than done, is not to run so much after all these pleasures. These pleasures are what is the key to my failure. And a person doesn't make the connection. Okay, so here I have a cookie. What's the big, so what? The cookie is permitted. And then you're wondering why at night you have an issue with some type of a challenge. Or whatever it is, you don't understand that something so external, so little, it affecting something so internal, both positive and the negative. We should constantly try to minimize the desire for pleasuring things in this world. You want to pleasure something, then pleasure it at least on Shabbat. So you have an issue with a cookie, then have the cookie on Shabbat. Don't have it during the week, because during the week, when there's some type of pleasure being derived from it physically, you're not getting anything out of it. There's no gain in any type of a pleasure during the week. You want to have pleasure in nice clothes? Wear nice clothes on Shabbat. A nice steak, they'll have the steak on Shabbat. Marital relations, then do it on Shabbat. Do it on Shabbat. It's already a mitzvah to enjoy and to have pleasure. So this is easier said than done, but at least you want to take from that something. Maybe it will have a little bit of a spark every time that you're putting your hand in that box of cookies. Wait a minute, in this cookie is a little demon that bites you from inside. And then we don't realize why the desire for more pleasure. You eat one cookie, right away comes the other cookie. So, and I'm saying cookies, but you take it to whatever place you want to understand that you want one, you want right away, you take one, right away you take the next one. It's very hard to say no. So, no need to go too much in length, but when it comes to physical pleasures, try to minimize it as much as possible, because it doesn't do anything good to you. It just develops the appetite to have another pleasure and another pleasure, and in a it doesn't seem such a direct way, but in a direct way it's affecting you, that you're losing power from one other end. So you're less focused on your prayer, you're less focused on your spiritual growth, it's affecting you. Why? Because you're already sunk into this barrel of dirt that is coming from ta'anug, from pleasure. And the more you are sinking into this pit of filth because of pleasure, and it can be simple things. B'chavana, I'm saying cookies, because other people say, okay, what's the big deal with a cookie? Yeah, but you don't have to have 7 of them in one sitting. Even if you have one, then have a little bite. But nevertheless, the importance of keeping it holy. The more holy you hold yourself, holy in Hebrew is kadosh, and kadosh means separated. So you want to make sure that you're sanctifying yourself with what you are permitted, not to go overboard. And the next thing that we need to take from that is that we're going to keep it already for a different lecture, a different class by itself, but how severe it is when I bring myself to disagreements with other people. Because it starts in something very refined, but it starts developing to something that is already crossing lines of being a problem in the Torah. So if the students of Rabbi Akiva and the students of the Arizal, so much more so that we fall to it like that. And I have to learn from that. If I can learn the Kitvei Arizal, because I'm never going to understand it, so at least learn from the behavior that was around. And the Arizal stopped his teaching the second that the students started not making space for each other, not respecting each other, disqualifying each other. And this isn't the students of the Arizal were beyond what we can understand, but we need to learn so much more so from here. Kal v'chomer, that if they, then so much more so we are. And the Torah is very, very refined, and the Torah cannot remain with one that has disagreements, has what's called a ge'ava, a Baal ge'ava on somebody else. I know better than him, you're not right. One needs to constantly apply that there's space for other people, and you're not the only one who's right all the time. The problem is that even if you have a disagreement when it comes to a topic in the Torah, you have to be very careful that it doesn't birth from it disagreements that will lead you into Lashon Hara and slandering, and this will already lead you into lying and to many other acts that, needless to say, we don't see the severity here. I don't think people really understand the severity of Lashon Hara and slandering and anything that comes with it. I think very few people really understand the severity because everybody is talking Lashon Hara. I mean, some people it's like, listen, I don't want to say Lashon Hara, but so if you don't want to say Lashon Hara, why are you saying anything? Just excuse my language, just shut up. So I don't believe people really understand the severity of Lashon Hara, besides the fact that when you start talking Lashon Hara, it's arousing in you all sorts of other emotions of hate and jealousy and anger, and before you know it, your camp is already is impure, that it's causing a greater tear and a greater tear and a more separation. And it all started because of an argument in halakha. And one can say, what? It was the sake of Shamayim. This is L'Shem Shamayim. But we have to understand that the Arizal, yesterday we spoke about how he was so strong with the opinion V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, that before you even start your day, you have to take on yourself this mitzvah. So much more so, if this is on the positive side, how much he was aware and cautious when it comes to any type of disagreement. So you have to be aware of any situation that will bring you into a disagreement and to run away from it like fire. That if you see that a certain situation will bring you to some type of a conflict, a disagreement, an argument, either way, how do you say it in English? Ani mochel mikvodi, I give you all my respect, all my honor, just, it's okay, you're right, just, you see the measure, the greatness of a person when he's running out of an argument. A person who runs into the argument, why his ego is hurt. And he has to give the comeback. Now, especially when the communication is through texting, now people don't settle things through talking. It's through texting. So, emails, same idea. And then with the words come all sorts of those, how you call them, emoji? The smiley faces. So one has a tongue out, one has the eye like this. And I don't know, I mean, it has to come with some type of a dictionary. The eye like this means this, the eye like that means that. Some people send me all these emojis and I'm like, I don't even know what the person's trying to tell me. I just see a circle, a yellow circle with one eye like this, one eye like that, and a tongue out. I don't know if that means, are you mocking me now, or are you, I don't know, what's the tongue mean? Maybe you're sending kisses? So that's how pathetic it is that people deal with situations through texting. Now it causes more problems because you don't really express yourself. You express yourself with an emoji. Now he turns his color to red, and smoke is coming here. I don't know. Are you upset at me right now? What does that mean? I'm at a loss here. What does this little creature mean? So maybe you're not. Maybe you're excited. Maybe you're red from excitement. What does it mean? So then most disagreements are settled today with texting. So the problem with texting and emailing, that you always feel you have to say the last word. And if you left like last, like what? There's no comeback? There's no answer? So I also sometimes I pulled into it. So it's like, the text ends, okay, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. Okay. And you don't know when do I stop here? That's the problem with the texting. So you don't know what's the gvul. That's how pathetic it is that disagreements, they are settled through text or an email. I'm saying text, email, text, same idea. It's not face-to-face that you don't need to say the last word. Most people think that they have to say the last word, even if it's positive or negative. The point is that we have to learn from that. I told you before, we cannot learn from the scripts of the Ari. Don't even think about it. If you want to open some of them and read for your, you have some free time, go ahead. Don't expect to learn anything from that. Rather learn from the general behavior around everything. And I choose to learn from that if the Ari stopped his students from learning his teachings when he saw a little bit of disagreement here, and this is not a disagreement what we have over money or property or whatever. This is already in a very refined level, but even then the Ari says, okay, up to here, I can't teach you anymore. You lost the ability of receiving anything. So much more so how one needs to completely be aware of anything that will bring me into a disagreement. Sorry, here, you're right, I'm sorry, no, I don't want to come into this. Why? Because it's just this quick that you start developing anger, and the anger will start developing already much more negative emotions. We'll go to jealousy and this starts developing a lot of problems. And it can happen over the course of 3 seconds, or it can happen after 2-3 days. But nevertheless, right away when there's a separation, then starts the problems. And then of course you wake up one day, how did I get myself into that? And even worse than that, how am I getting myself out of that? So who needs this headache? And at least if the other person on the other side is the one who's pushing, then you'll be the smart one and move away. Because it's very easy to be pulled into the argument. It's very easy to be pulled into the disagreement. And so many times I'm sure you found yourself that you are pulled into a disagreement and you're like, I didn't choose to be here. Why are you pulling me into the argument? I don't want to argue with you. So we want to take something very deep and profound, is that any type of disagreement, arguments, and so forth will just lead for a disaster. And disaster might not be something so tangible in our eyes, but just the fact that there's developing here already hate and jealousy, and then from that it's already taking you to Lashon Hara, and slandering and lying, and before you know it, Hashem Yerachem. So we want to learn from that how the importance, forget about how to save yourself from going into that, how the important is this attribute that in Hebrew is called kavod hadadi, that I have respect, that it's a mutual respect, that I quickly see the good things in you, and not right away I disqualify you from all the bad things. To disqualify somebody, all it takes is just to look at somebody right away, you'll spit out all the bad things. It's much greater to look at somebody and to find the positive things and to focus on that and to work on that. Very easy to look at somebody and right away to find the fault. And needless to say, a person can do 1,000 times good. One time he messes up, that's it. They remember what he messed up. You didn't remember that he did 1,000 times good things. You just remember the one time that, whoop, a slip of a tongue. So we need to be from the ones who don't feed on that, because the world, feeds on this Lashon Hara. The whole world, people say the money makes the world go round. It's actually Lashon Hara that makes the world go round. Stop the Lashon Hara for 1 second, the world will stop, because Mashiach will come. But nevertheless, we have to understand how the sheker and this power war, this is what, so to say, turns everything around. Imagine no Lashon Hara, what would they do on Facebook all day long? I mean, what will be stay there just to see cats dancing? So you don't want to be involved in that. You want to make sure that you're out, and even if it takes the excitement away, I know it's very exciting to be in arguments, and especially when you are few against one, that's, your power. We're 3 against 1 right now. So you don't need this. You're here to grow spiritually, you're here to grow emotionally and physically. This is not for the person who wants to nourish themselves. You have to be smart to know when it's pulling you into the disagreement. And sometimes it's very, very tempting, because the disagreement will come in a form of an argument for the sake of the Torah. And you feel that you have to argue for the sake of the Torah right now. Our sages say, Ezo HaChacham, who's a smart person, HaRoeh et HaNorah, that you see what it will birth. You see it will birth a tragedy, don't worry about the kavod of the Torah. Worry about the disaster that it's going to cause. It's very easy to get pulled into, especially in our generation, so many people mock the Torah. It's so easy to right away get into a confrontation. People love that. I want to get into some action, get my hands all, But you have to be very smart how you're dealing with other people. And I believe from the many deep teachings of the Ari, we need to look at the things that are practical. And I see that as a very practical thing, that if the Ari chose to stop teaching his students because of that, take from it a very big, so much more so, alachat kama vekama, that how much I need to limana mimachloket, to not to put myself in any situation. And needless to say that the Yetzer Hara, that's where he takes you. The Yetzer Hara less cares right now if you put tefillin on, you didn't put tefillin on, you said Shema on time. The Yetzer Hara is not involved, that's not his department. The Yetzer Hara wants to get you excited to do something and to put somebody else down. And this, you have to understand how the Yetzer Hara is operating. So, B'ezrat Hashem, the point is to take practical things from what we learn, not to just talk in theory. And with the power, especially that we're so close to the Ari HaKadosh, with the power of the day and the proximity, you have to really wake up in the morning and memorize yourself, to chant to yourself the point that I should not get into any argument. Look at the nosachim of some of the nosachim. Look at the nosach of the Ari, it says, Ve'al tevienu l'dei machloket. Don't bring me into a machloket. Look at the some nosachim, the different sidurim, what it says in Birkot HaShachar in the morning. And one of them says, Ve'al tevienu l'dei machloket. Don't bring me into an argument. That you have to pray to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. This needs a lot of siyata dishmaya, not to be pulled into a hachikeni, mi chavera, mi shachen, mi yetzer hara. So most people said the Birkot HaShachar like in the speed of 562 miles per hour, right away for the coffee or for the cigarette or something. So if you just focus on Birkot HaShachar, you see the depth in it, you pray with it with all your kavanah, you see that there's a lot of wisdom behind it. You don't want to get yourself into a machloket. You have to be very, very aware. If people would have the awareness how dangerous a machloket is, a disagreement, they would run away from it like fire. So yesterday you saw the fire was in the next to the graves. Hashem only knows what causes such a fire in the middle of such a holy day, next to so many holy graves. There's a fire going wild. So I think it's a hint to us to understand that when we get too close to each other in a negative way, there's fire. And I don't think there was a lot of Ahavat Israel next to the kever, pushing, and I need to be closer here, and then. So this is not the way to treat each other in a hilula, especially next to a kever. But I think the Ari was hinting to us that don't think that when you rub shoulders, there's not going to be fire there. We just don't see it. So we think it's normal. But imagine now every time you would say Lashon Hara, you would see somebody going up in flames, you would be silent for the rest of your life. So I think the Ari is hinting to us, be very careful with your speech and very careful with your actions, because you don't see it, but you're causing fires. And fire that it goes wild, I mean, I wasn't there when the fire was, I saw the videos, but fire when it goes wild, it spreads, you don't have control over it. So you have to look at everything that happens and learn musar from that, some teaching, and you have to understand that your actions, when they're negative, right away they catch fast like fire. And the destruction that fire does, it consumes everything. Yes, sometimes fire is very positive, but when fire is negative and it's out of control, it consumes everything. It doesn't leave anything behind. So we have to understand that we have to hold ourselves in a different level. This is already part of our generation, that there's no time now to get into these rubbing shoulders in the wrong way, because the effect is detrimental. So hopefully we can take from that to apply it in our life, how valuable is every word that comes out of my mouth, how valuable is sometimes, okay, so you limchol me'akavot, okay, so my respect is being stepped all over right now. Big deal. I can prevent an argument, I'll take it on myself. I'll take this, I don't need the kavod, I don't need to be the one with the upper hand and saying the last word or sending the last emoji with the smoke coming out of the ear. So kavod is not for us. We're not in the caliber that we need any type of respect. And needless to say that we don't need a lot of people doing it. We need a small group of people that focus on the right thing. That is enough to better the world. And needless to say, a small group of people focusing on what the world needs, that's enough. That's enough for us. So we can bring the redemption in a nice, smooth way, and not to start seeing all sorts of Patriot missiles flying here from all sorts of directions. So Hashem is giving us very nice and subtle hints, and saying us in nice words, get your act together, and And you are one of them. You don't have to be now the chief rabbi of the universe or the student of the Arizal. You need to be a dedicated soul to doing the right thing. Bezrat Hashem, with a lot of Siyata Dishmaya, Hashem should help you also to be successful in what you do. Is all about putting the right goals and the right parameters. What are my borders? Where am I crossing? What am I not crossing? And to be strong about it, to have a strong mind, to understand that one person can affect the entire world. One person's behavior. One day that you don't react, you don't say Lashon Hara, you don't lie, you don't slander, you don't get into an argument. One person that can tilt the entire world to a kaf zchut, and then we don't need Trump or Putin to smile and shake hands and all that nonsense. Bezrat Hashem, Yeh Ratzon, we should have the ability to really see the good in everything, have respect to other people, to make space for other people, and needless to say, make a nicer place in the world to be, that will welcome Mashiach to come here in a nice and smooth way. רבי חנניה בן הקשיא אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל, לפיכך הרבה להם תורה ומצוות, שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה ויעדיל.